It's no accident you're listening to the OneCellOneLight Radio Network featuring Dr. Hildegard Stenninger. Join Dr. Hildy as she and her guests discuss a blend of art, science, and medicine, all coming up on the Dr. Hildy Show. And it all starts right now. Here's Dr. Hildy.
Welcome to the show, audience, and my special guest, Mr. Robby Besner. He is CEO, Chief Executive Officer with Therasage, and I am very pleased to bring his technology to the forefront for my listening audience because I've been involved in far infrared for over a decade, and at the same time, Robby's company uses jade, which I love when it's augmented with the far infrared. Welcome to the show, Mr. Besner.
Thank you, Dr. Hildy. And before we start, I just wanted to tell you how humbly and grateful I am that you invited me to speak today. And I'm looking forward to doing all that I can to further along the general awareness of how great this technology is as a natural healing event to just help the community get back on track with their health care.
And it's a wonderful pillar that you come from in this foundation of your company, and also the concern for people's health, because as we both know, far infrared was used in Asia a long time ago as qi, and now it's coming, and it needs to be rebirthed here and around the world. Robby, could you share with the audience how you became involved with far infrared, or in this whole aspect of healing with heat?
Certainly. About 12 and a half years ago, we discovered through a series of serendipitous events that my daughter had contracted Lyme disease. And I'm sure the viewers out there and listeners have been aware that Lyme disease is becoming much more pandemic in terms of the spread of the disease, not just in the United States, but now it seems to be affecting the globe. So when we, my family, my wife and I, just as a unit, we've always looked at health care through natural events, and so we were searching far and wide for the best ways methods to help my daughter detox, because we knew no matter which road and protocol we took to try to help her with her health condition, that ultimately it will result in her maintaining a very high level of toxicity in her body to a point where she couldn't efficiently get rid of the neurotoxins that are put off by the disease or in the process of living and dying, and as well as the dead disease in her body. At some point, as many people with chronic conditions, they seem to suffer more from their toxicity levels than they do from sometimes the disease itself.
Right.
So when we looked far and wide, we kept on coming up with naturally this far infrared frequencies, which are natural events from the sun. They help the body shed these poisons. So not going the route of a invasive IV of chelation through IV therapy, or even promoted by chemicals to cause the body to purge toxin, we chose to investigate further about the importance of this infrared frequency, and then from that decided to develop technology that would help her, of course not realizing that she wasn't alone as the world turns over the last 12 years plus, and as we move forward, we're getting more toxic. There's air issues, there's water pollution issues, there's soil pollution issues, there's food pollution issues, and so forth. And so the body becomes the filter that pulls all these toxins in. And so my wife and I united, and we decided that this was really a calling for us, and we just chose to put our energies and resources into developing affordable, infrared technology that people can understand and bring into their lives.
And that's greatly appreciated, I know, for your clientele in the world. In speaking of Lyme, as you brought out, it is sort of definitely pandemic, meaning it's coming around the world where in the past you used to get bit by the deer tick and get exposed. And I don't know the history of your daughter, how she was exposed. Was she bit or just became positive with it? But it's just as you pointed out, that if the body is so overwhelmed with the amount of toxicity in it as the result of the cells not being able to collectively do the detoxification mechanism cellularly, that then it accumulates these toxins, which a cell can make as many as 23 other toxic chemicals, which are known as the maverick compounds, and at the same time, your body gets overwhelmed. And that's when, as you shared with the audience, your daughter was possibly at a stage in that time when it's so severe that it's like life and death. You have to get rid of the toxin within and build back the body.
Sure, and it's not just there. It becomes systemic. It affects every organ, and all of us have different genetic makeups and dispositions. And so when the body becomes toxic, everything starts to become, your whole body functions start to become less efficient. And then, one thing rolls into another, sort of cascades into a general, problem that's holistic within each of our systems.
Right, and I recently went to a seminar on molecular toxicology, and it was brought out for the first time in many years that I've seen it brought out from a pharmaceutical company that majority of the toxins that are medicines, prescription drugs, tend to accumulate 40% in the body, causing its own toxicity. So even if an individual is on, as we know, Lyme, individuals are on standard care of massive antibiotics and other types of therapies and treatments that way, that they end up losing their microflora within their GI tract, can't make the glutathione, and then it's a whole milieu of all different kinds of things happening to that body. So that
right,
was,
a real domino effect.
Yeah, you've got it, and it was very good that as parents that you were able to augment, and your daughter listened to you, to going into the infrared and experiencing that, because I've always loved the technology of infrared radiant heat, because what happens is you don't need, as you said, the chelation or any of that. You don't need the needles. I don't like needles. It must have been way back from Atlantis days. I heard that they had a table with a lot of needles there. Anyway, the thing is that it allows you to detoxify and at the same time send the energy, which is in this wavelength, into your body to stimulate a natural detoxification process through the circulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, Robby, in your company, Therasage, I know that particular company specializes not only in bringing forward far infrared technology, but also you brought out a point to me in testing the equipment that your company not only made a commitment, you and your wife, for infrared technology and the healing properties of heat, but also to make sure that there was not an additional EMF in that area.
Right. Well, we have basically 4 pillars or constitutions that make up our that we employ in our technology. And of course, the first is that each of as a company, we make the technology. We use the most advanced forms of infrared technology, and we bring it to the marketplace at an affordable rate. And we also make products that are very easily understood in everyone's homes or home offices or businesses. So, for instance, one of our core products is a healing pad. And I don't really have to explain to the world what a heating pad or a healing pad is, but today to talk about the virtues or the benefits, the natures of infrared frequency in a healing pad, that's something special. And that's the road that we're on. The four components that make up our technology is, of course, a full-spectrum infrared pad. So similar to the wavelengths, this is infrared frequency is a natural energy that's generated from sun energy. So you have UV sun energy, you have X-rays and so forth, and the infrared frequency is a spectrum that many of the naturopaths these days say is the most beneficial spectrum of all energy from the sun. It's the same frequencies that the plant kingdom, plants use to generate their photosynthesis. That's their food.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very important frequency for our bodies. So we use full spectrum infrared. That means we're using the near, which is the very short frequency, the middle, and the far. Near basically helps the body just under the surface of the skin. It improves the microcirculation of the capillaries under the skin. So the individual gets their whole complexion changes. It promotes sweating and so forth. And a better exchange through the skin for air and to get rid of poisons and so forth. Also for the production of natural collagen, it promotes that, so makes the person more youthful. For anti-aging, it's fantastic. Clears up wrinkles and helps with scar repair. And certainly, if you're just off of a surgery or you have an open wound, by using the near or the infrared frequencies, you can elevate the core temperature of the wound site, fighting off infection, because most bacteria and viruses or invaders don't like temperatures above 102 degrees Fahrenheit. And so the infrared frequency, it seamlessly comes into the body because it harmonizes with the frequency of the water inside of us. And that's a great biotechnology, because most of our bodies are 70% water. The cell could be 90% water. Our brains are more than 80% water. And so the very idea that there is a light frequency that can penetrate deeply into the body and harmonizes with the frequency of the water in us is terrific. So we employ the full spectrums, all three areas of infrared, the near, middle, and far. Our signature is to combine infrared technology with natural gemstones. So many of our products use natural jade stone, and the jade stone actually acts as conveys the frequency to the body, as well as many people believe that the jade itself has healing properties. I know that you're really big on the jade, so you could probably speak to that.
Yeah, I agree with you on the jade, and you use a darker colored jade, and there's the mint colored jade, the milky light color green, and then the darker one. And each one of them in that blend of that mineral has aluminum in it, and that acts as creating anions to help detoxify you even deeper into the tissue. And I've loved jade from studying it in Chinese mythology and everything.
The Asians have worshipped the stone for more than 2,000 years. Our jade is farmed in the northern part of China, just outside of Beijing, and it's a center there. And if you ever travel that way, they have artisans that sculpture the most beautiful, intricate designs with jade, and people wear the jade, and they want it on their bodies. They want to have it with them. It's just amazing. We also this year have introduced a product line using natural tourmaline, and maybe later on today we can talk a little bit about how we integrate the tourmaline in our infrared portable sauna. But the tourmaline is a very special stone too, and generates, as you pointed out, an enormous amount of natural healing energy, as well as these anions, which appear in nature. An anion, for the audience, as you know, it's also called a negative ion. It creates sort of a grounding effect or an earthing effect, because the body might carry a natural positive charge. Generally, depending on how active you are or the types of foods that you eat, might indicate the amount of positive charge you have. The earth, of course, is a negative charge. And if we were, turning back the clock and were living in a time where we weren't wearing shoes and there was more earth under our feet, we would actually that part of it would ground us, would actually bring that earth charge into the body, neutralize us, which is a very important physiological event. We recognized this in our own research here more than 6 years ago, that the synergistic or combined effect of the infrared frequency and the negative ion has an amazing healing event for the body. So in nature, a negative ion might occur at a waterfall. It's generally combined with when water moves over land or somehow maybe through the atmosphere. After you may have that note that feeling after like a fresh rain when the air feels a little heavy. It's actually charged with these negative ions. Many times when I present, I ask the audience about who in the audience sings in the shower, and I get begrudging hands raising, and they say, well, I do, and I do, and I do. And then I always ask, well, why do you sing in the shower? And after we talk for a few minutes, I settle everyone down. I go, the reason why you sing is because you're happy. And the reason why you're happy is because when that water is coming through your shower head, it's actually emulating a waterfall, and it's freeing up electrons in that small chamber, and your body's open, your pores are open, your skin is soft, and it's absorbing that negative ion. It's actually completing the charge. It's grounding you. It's combining with your positive charge of the body to make a complete circuit in a way, and that creates a sense of well-being, a calmness, euphoria. You're happy. That's why you sing.
And that's wonderful, because that is so true. Many people do or don't sing in the shower, but it's beautiful the way you presented it.
Well,
explanation. And I want to add, before we go into the fourth pillar, that many times individuals get exposed to metals, and they're heavy metals, meaning the arsenic, the cadmium, the lead, the mercury, etc. But the thing is, when you have these anions, which act as those positive gates, in negative areas of the body to open it up, that is amplified by, as you brought out, by the water, because everything is being conditioned by the water, which is another gate within the body, because that's between the cells, being fresh water, so that when these other gates open up within the cellular structure, it allows these anions to go in and help balance the cells, thus reducing the disease, and help stimulate, as you stated earlier, the collagen, the porphyrins that are needed in the skin. The other thing is many researchers in cancer research are now showing that as you increase tyrosine in the body, which is, we get that from our eating turkey. It makes us calm and mellow because it's a great neurotransmitter food for our neurotransmitters. The thing is that if you have more cancer or cancer-forming cells in the body, you have an increase of tyrosine, because the tyrosine is going into the cell trying to encapsulate it. That's where you have the hardening of the shell, like around the cancer cells and that. And then this imbalance occurs. But the thing is, what stimulates the natural production of tyrosine, from our food and the assimilation, is using the infrared, the radiant heat. And with the jade, it just augments it even more with the tauramine to assist in amplifying the detoxification mechanisms that are in our body naturally, but need sometimes nutrients to supplement it because the body's too overwhelmed with the toxicity.
Right. Fantastic. And a lot of to add on the anion part, when you have a complete circuit, when the cell has both that negative charge and positive charge, similar to a battery, from cell to cell, it's truly improving the communication. And some of the newer research on infrared and negative ion is suggesting that in all healthy tissues, when that communication is in balance, then we have a healthy cell, we have a healthy tissue, and one cell to another, are you okay, I'm okay, they communicate. When the charges are off, when it's all one-sided, we're positive charge and so forth, then the communication starts to break down. Of course, that allows disease, pathogens, and things like Lyme disease to take over and take charge of the body. So truly, the synergistic and the combination of bringing the infrared and the negative ion together has really been a real plus and a differentiator in terms of our company and our technology and the products that we make.
Right, and what is important, too, before we leave that topic, is that not only the anions, I wrote a paper on electrophilic, neutrophilic compounds years ago with a co-author, Scott Evans, and it was the first of genetic toxicity papers from groundwater monitoring wells getting exposed to all the priority pollutants. But in this, these cells, before they're creating a disease, which are amplified in creating a disease, too, is by the viruses that you may have naturally in your body, or like in the Lyme or any of these others, meaning the bacteria, the fungus, the mycotoxins that are in your body, and other chemicals. They amplify and send the wrong signal, just like when we were in first grade or that, and we are lined up, there's 20 students there, you tell a message on the first student, and then you go all the way down. It's a total distorted message than what you said, originally.
Right. Sure, remember that. We used to play telephone, remember?
Right.
I can.
And the thing is that when that message is messed up, it's messed up because of the distortion of the water molecule within the body, in addition to stimulating the heat shock proteins, et cetera, and that's why some people, when they have chronic fatigue or the burning of the muscles or anything, it's really the stimulation of the heat shock proteins because there's not enough oxygen in that area, and it stimulates. But the thing is, with that whole mechanism, what is ideal is that when you have the radiant heat, the infrared and the far infrared, what happens is far infrared has no photons, so it allows to go in deep. And at the same time, when the near infrared comes in with 2 or more photons, because mid has at least 1 photon, and when it goes in, it stimulates the body to remember, because light has memory just as water has memory. So when you get that right proportion of that balanced of that energy going into you, your body starts to remember how it used to act, how it used to feel, and then starts the mechanism of getting rid of not only the toxins, but the memory of those toxins, the memory of that disease. It's like I always tell individuals, well, if you keep saying you have arthritis, you're going to have arthritis because you're telling your body you have it. So you have to, one is do the remedies of what you need to get rid of arthritis, but at the same time, which is the buildup of those antibodies on the proteins. But the thing is that then you let it go.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
That's totally great. And, the truth is, and I'm sure many people have experienced this, we want to be healthy. We want to be healed. But there's so many sort of forces out there in the environment these days that are getting in the way. They're just like potholes everywhere, And
right.
So we almost have a personal responsibility to try to bring a little detox into our body each day, just to sort of keep even with what's going on around us. I often say when I present that, I get up in the morning and I barely look at myself in the mirror when I'm shaving, and when I'm looking in the mirror, I see a reflection of what I look like on the outside, but there's no mirror that shows us what we look like on the inside.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so there's no real way to really to assess that from day to day. And that being said, if we could all figure out a way, and I have with our technology, because it's easy to use and it's easy to give yourself a 15-minute or 20-minute session, and once you get going and you do this every day, it starts to get rid of all these accumulated poisons and things that really affect our health when they start to accumulate. And again, efficiently, we can't get rid of them. So this technology seems to be an answer.
It is a beautiful answer. Go ahead, Robby. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I just wanted to make sure that we cover the last pillar, which has to do with the different frequencies, the vortexes, the EMF frequencies that are out there and all around us. Infrared frequency, particularly the infrared sauna, is a great device to help the body get rid of EMF. EMF, as I see it, as we move forward in technology, it's the wireless devices, the networks that we have set up in all of our homes so that we can use our telephones and use our computers without wires, and Bluetooth technology, and we all love that stuff. I mean, it's here to stay, and it's only going to get bigger and more efficient, but in the same right, it's also bringing these frequencies to the body and that we can't perceive, because we can smell bad air, we can taste bad food, and so we know when that is. Maybe we shouldn't be eating it or smelling it and move out of the area, but the body cannot sense an EMF, cannot sense a lot of these frequencies that affect us. And what it does ultimately, in a grand scale, is it wears on our immune system. It's another force, another environmental force that's silent, that's invisible, that we can't calibrate. We don't know how much of it we store. Yet it has an impact on our health care, because when you have that wearing down on us, and our immune system or our life force has to fight that off, and then it just gives the opportunity for a disease or a pathogen or a bug or a Lyme or something to start to take over and take charge. So us as a company, we recognized a few years ago the importance of, as technology is moving forward, that EMF is here to stay. And so what we did is we employ techniques, special filters, to essentially block the EMF on all of our devices. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important, because most things that plug into walls, plug into an electric socket, will generate some of this electromagnetic frequency. And the further we can keep this from our bodies, the healthier we are. So with these combinations that we talk about in our technology, it really presents a product that is generally a natural healing event. And depending on the issue, I mean, the more people I meet, the more I realize that almost everybody out there can benefit in one way or another from having infrared frequency in their bodies, bring this technology to them.
Right, and with EMF, we're seeing more with the smart meters that are being put in the city or put on your homes or anything. It amplifies the signals, meaning through the electrical wiring in your house, and thus that electrical current, which can create different pulses, and that can go through your body just as you expressed. And in this, because if your body is more polluted with metals, just using lead as an example, those metals, or the finer the particulate, will vibrate within the body, causing more cellular damage, because it also, the more EMF field there is, that means that whatever the particles that would be the photons which would be in the body would also scatter their light, meaning you wouldn't be able to get the right amount of photons that you need, say, to process ATP. You need 14 photons, so you're not going to have energy, because you might have the right balance of far infrared, but you don't have the photons being formed because something's blocking it. Example, like modified food starch, which was made out of polyurethane, which can scatter all these lights. But if you look at the foods, as you brought out earlier, the environment is getting so polluted, but there has been major changes in the productions of foods using these types of polymers, and that in foods and modification of normal starches, cornstarch or potato starch, adding a water-based polyurethane that just amplifies the EMF within the body, let alone create its own toxicity.
Right. So with this around us, and now today talking about it, we need to sort of spend some time and raise consciousness and make people aware that in this technology is here and it's affecting us. And so, when we're a little bit more stressed or a little bit more tired or, run down at the end of the day, it's because we're being bombarded with all these various different aspects of energies and environmental influences, and ultimately it affects our health.
Right, and it's accumulative, meaning what I want to differentiate, you could go and get a tattoo, and it's made out of lead and nickel, and say the tattoo artist accidentally hit your nerve bundle, meaning the nerve within your muscle. So you got an injection of that dye in that muscle. And if you use something that has a positive-negative charge, like a magnetic vortex or any of these things that can allow the metal to come out because of the plus minus, it will come out. It'll cauterize and burn, coming out. But it's better out than in. But when they make smaller particles of these metals that are now being used in many different formulations, even natural supplements, nutritional supplements or anything, these particles tend to get into the pores of the cells, and thus the cells then calcify it over, and it basically like suffocates the cells. And in this process, when that happens, you will feel more electrical from the EMF versus before you only had like, I can hear the ringing or I can hear it on the nerve. I'm quoting patients that now you hear more, it's more whole body. Have you experienced that too with clientele?
Oh, yeah. They
hearing that?
Yes, so definitely. And for the most part, everybody seems to get get a great response once they start to, almost immediately, I want to say within a few minutes, they start to get that visceral response, and they can feel the infrared frequency gently penetrating the body. There's a distinction between the two kinds of heats. Most people out there are familiar with what we call tactile heat, where you have maybe a electric blanket or a traditional heating pad that has a copper coil in it. That coil, of course, generates the heat, but it does it and also generates electromagnetic frequencies at the same time. So you're getting heat, but you're also getting the frequency. Most of those types, hot rock sauna or a steam room works the same way. When I ask people about that, they say, gee, I've been in a steam room, but it's really hard to breathe in a steam room. Well, of course, because the tactile heats have to be have higher temperatures and have to be placed on the body for a longer period of time in order for them to generate any kind of therapy inside. And the distinction is with the infrared frequency, because it's harmonizing with the water, and just under your skin there's a layer of fat, and that fat acts as an insulation that basically protects your inside from extreme cold or extreme heat. So tactile heat has to fight hard to get past that layer. So that's why it needs to be elevated. And of course, when you take the traditional heating pad off of you, the therapy goes away immediately. The difference here now with infrared frequency, because it's a natural event, it's part of sun energy, it seamlessly penetrates that insulating layer of fat because it's harmonizing with the water in the fat, right?
Right.
And then it's seeking the densest properties of our bodies, and that's generally your muscle mass or your organ tissue. So it soaks up into the muscle or the organ tissue, and the thermal, that energy is creating. It's actually energizing the water inside the tissues inside your body, and and it's creating that biothermal, that bioresonance is another way that we look at it, vibration or resonance, creating that heat. And that's where most of the beginning of a lot of the physiological, the great health benefits of infrared frequency all starts from that exchange of that energy, that biothermal. So it stores in the muscle or the organ, and it can last for an hour treatment with infrared frequency. It can last between 1 and 1.5 times longer because it's stored in the muscle than the treatment itself. So if you had a healing pad on your body, it soaks into your, let's say, your chest or your back muscle, and then again, that energy is stored in the muscle, so it continues to create therapy even though the treatment's over. So it's really terrific in that way.
Right. You have an extended, I'm going to say, lifetime. Like an extended half-life of what you absorb. Say you absorb that infrared heat for 1 hour, and through the body's process, that may last you maybe a day and a half. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, exactly. And
right.
then depending on everybody's different body makeups, their BMI, the far infrared frequency can penetrate between 2 and 3 inches to the body. So that's really terrific in terms of that level of absorption. When you're using infrared, particularly far infrared, in a healing pad, let's say, generally the meatier parts of your body, like your chest or your back, your legs, your buttock area, and so forth, the more populated with organ or muscle, and more dense, the more absorption. So you can use infrared frequency for a longer period of time or at a greater temperature. When you're using this technology on areas that are less populated with muscle, like your neck or your hands, your extremities, like your feet, there you can use the technology, the infrared frequencies, for a lesser amount of time and for a little bit lower heat to create the same therapeutic effect.
Right, and I've seen through my experience with it and working with it over this decade is that as your body absorbs the radiant heat, it will fill in the gaps, and then as your body starts to remember how to make it itself and absorb it properly, then you get filled up with it, and you can go for extended periods of time without using it every day, meaning not as a medicinal purpose versus just as a regular beauty treatment.
Wow, yeah, it's so true. And many of our clients over the years, they call up because they've got chronic back pain. I mean, almost everybody can relate to that. 1 in 3 Americans have that these days, right? Or they're stressed out or they're tired, whatever. So they get attracted to this infrared technology because they hear that it's really good for pain per se. So they start off on the road to get some relief from pain, and then they realize that, wow, I just generally feel better. I'm getting a better night's sleep at night, and they start telling their friends about it, and the word gets out pretty fast. And it's truly amazing that, you may start on a path with using infrared for one thing, but then you realize that it has so many, it helps you in so many ways. It's really terrific in that aspect.
Right, and I want to bring out, Robby, and you probably know this, but maybe our audience doesn't realize it. In our spinal cord, the nerves, not only the main spinal cord, but there is attaching nerves that go around to, there are other organs in the body, I'm going to say under the surface of the skin. At the same time, a lot of the toxins not only accumulate systemically in each one of the organ systems because the different chemicals or the toxins will have an affinity charge to go there. Example, ethylene oxide loves to go to ovaries. Perchloroethylene loves to go to lung tissue. Any of those factors. But there is a mass accumulation of not only bacteria, of viruses, chemicals, etc., which is on our tailbone area, in that great neural bed that is at the base of our spine that goes through its nervous system to the buttocks, in the back muscles, the gluteus maximus. And in that process, that's why sometimes a lot of people have this pain in the back, because it's really accumulation of chemicals. And with the pad that you have, you can, it's small, you can put it in that area, and it can start to open it up and detox. The same thing that happens, too, is that when this accumulation occurs, that you become deficient of primarily in that area of niacin, and that's why they say in severe niacin loss, you not only have a red head, when you're losing it in your head, or your ears turn red, you blush, is your palms, your feet, but in the anus, especially with mold exposures, a lot of people have itchiness in that area and those muscles, and it's because the loss of niacin in that area as a result of chemicals being there, in particular molds or bacteria, or even like what your daughter experienced with the Lyme, which is from a spirochete, that they need the chemicals to grow from. Mold needs, your carbon, your body to grow from, and it makes those little microtubules and creates a whole network of taking your nutrients out, your amino acids, et cetera, and then you get weaker and weaker.
Wow. Great. On that note about the toxins, what we identified was that there's a strong bond between the toxin and the fat molecule.
Definitely.
That's usually the first area where they go and populate.
Right, because they're fat soluble, yeah.
And most of these toxins are acidic. And so one of the things that infrared frequency does is it breaks the covalent bond between the acidic toxin and the fat molecule. So the toxin falls away, comes into your bloodstream, right? So one thing, if later on today we'll talk a little bit about the application with the infrared sauna particularly, but as we start to detox, now we pull that acidic toxin away. Of course, we're increasing the toxic load on the body, so we highly recommend when you're using infrared frequency therapy in a pad or in the sauna, whatever, that you drink more water than you normally do, because we want to dilute down the new toxic load that happens naturally through the process of infrared frequency. It's really breaking up that bond in the toxin. Now, when you move that acidic toxin away and now it's starting to come out of the body, guess which way your body moves? The pH moves towards being more alkaline. So we have another event occurring here because, as you know, most systemic diseases aspire in acidic internal chemistries.
Right.
So if we can bring the body pH more positive or more alkaline just through the process of the detox, my God, another great event here, right?
Right, and I want to share with the audience and you that, yes, 100% correct on the adipose tissue, the fat. That's why chemicals love to go to the brain, because it's 95% fat. Our natural mechanism is to generate the glutathione, which comes from our natural flora, and it's stored in our body in more areas where there's red muscle, meaning high in mitochondria, like our liver, our kidneys, our heart, our reproductive organs, that the glutathione has to convert it from a fat-soluble compound into a water-soluble compound using the thiols and making the peroxides and making the mercaptans. The thing is, these secondary compounds, thiols and mercaptans, are highly toxic, but our body's proteins from the amino acids are supposed to go out and function properly and create it so that it can go through the liver and the kidney. The thing is, though, with these molecules that are accumulating in the fat, and we have the different races, being Chinese has less fat molecule on the surface of the skin, to stay cooler, versus Caucasian, versus Native American, versus Hispanic, versus Black, our Afro-American. What happens is they have a darker pigment, so they need more fat molecules to cool their body down. The thing is, though, in these different skin texture types, due to the different race background, just dividing it into those common denominators, there is an accumulation of more toxins in the fat molecule, just like you said, and as that comes off, you definitely need to have something to bind it. I call it like the chlorella, blue-green algae, any of these other types of molecules, cilantro or anything to accumulate it. And another thing I want to share, in tradition, genetically, it's always been that Hispanic bloodlines had a thicker cell wall membrane, okay? So that meant that they had more SOD1 in it because the membrane was bigger. The thing is, though, if you go back into some of the bloodlines, in particular the Hispanics, that had traces back into Mexico and into the indigenous people, at the turn of the 15th century, when Spain came over to these areas and was mining gold and silver after destroying the Aztecs' population and everything, the thing is that they brought over from Spain Cinzabar. Cinzabar was also used for longevity, which is a blend with mercury in it for Chinese. So keep this in mind of these bloodlines, Chinese and also Hispanic, particularly with the Mexican or any of the mining, even in Spain, because the Cinzabar had mercury in it, so when it mixed with these metals in making gold and silver, it would give off mercury. Many of those individuals were poisoned and died and had neurological disorders, Mad Hatter's diseases experienced in making the beaver felt hats over in England, as I call it, the stovepipe hats. That Abraham Lincoln used. That's where the Mad Hatter came out because of using mercury to clean the fat off. The thing is, though, these tissues, just as we say, one cell starts with a beam of light in it, it also has not only the memory, but it can have a smaller molecule portion of the original offending toxin, and is through science and the advancement of toxicogenomics in the future, they're going to be showing that it's these little molecules that turned off a mechanism to protect, but it needed the far infrared, that light, to come in to start moving it, breaking up these covalent bonds and the other bonds that are associated with it. But I've often wondered that through these heritages that you were exposed to, like mercury, thus you have a tendency to accumulate, because the mercaptans is mercury within the process of the glutathione second phase, trying to break it down and get it out of the body. So you might, what I'm trying to say is, in that long sentence, Robby and guest, is that you may have a pre-affinity to not have your mechanisms work properly in detoxification due to this inherited effect, where science currently is saying it's genetic, when in reality, if you supplement and you get the mechanism going properly, you don't have the same genetic effect.
Sure, and then of course, let's just follow that thought. If that's your proclivity, and now there's a technology out there, by the far frequency is the one that's in the saunas and so forth and covered in the full spectrum, that will naturally pull out the mercuries and the leads. So if you have a proclivity, whether it be environmental, where you're located, domicile, or even genetically or in heritage, here you have an answer to that, because if you already know you have that tendency, and now you can employ a methodology, a technology that will help pull that out. Think about how your quality of life will improve, right?
Correct, and also that cellular memory, everything. It's getting it cleaner, getting the temple cleaner, but also getting the memories cleaned of the as I call it, the ancient ancestors, and even becoming, as you stated earlier on the show, what do you look like inside versus on the outside looking in the mirror? That beautiful cosmic stardust crystal within you can be seen.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to add a couple of things. One thing,
sure.
Based on your skin color, whether you're very fair or very dark-skinned, is a sort of a way to calculate how much frequency the body needs. So generally, I usually use 30 minutes as a guideline. If you're a very fair-skinned person, maybe from the Baltic states or something like that, countries, there you might need 20 to 30 minutes of either natural light or the infrared frequency in order for the body to be wholesome or completed the chain. For someone that's a darker-skinned person, there you might need somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes of natural energy or this frequency for each day for your body to be, completely in sync. A few years ago, they did a study, and they measured a drop of sweat from the same individual using an infrared sauna, a hot rock sauna, and a steam room. And they measured the toxins in that sweat, and they discovered that there's 85% more poison or toxin in the sweat coming from the infrared sauna. So you will pull out poison through the sweat and these other formats, but they pull out the available stuff that's in your bloodstream, the stuff that's on the surface. The infrared technology actually goes down and pulls out the stuff that's hidden and buried and the bad guys,
Right, and compartmentized, because when you don't have enough glutathione, your body tends to use your protein. That's where you have the wasting in the body and of the muscle net, and it walls it in, and it also even walls it in with fat, meaning the cholesterol and everything. A lot of people say, well, I got high cholesterol levels or anything, and it's because there's a toxicity there in the body that it is responding to. You mentioned earlier, too, in reference to scar tissue and bacteria, and it's so true because with any scar tissue, bacteria, viruses like to accumulate there because there's less resistance. It's like a charged area for it. And when you use the infrared and that whole mechanism, that scar becomes nice and pink, and it starts to regenerate and gets smaller and smaller and less, at least from my experience with individuals.
Oh, yeah, and it goes on and on, Dr. Hildy. I really believe that the infrared frequency reclimatizes the tissues of the body. It makes them more supple. It makes them more sponge-like. One side of it helps the body get rid of the poisons, shed those poisons that are lining the vessels and lining the tissues and lining the cells. But it also allows the tissues to breathe a little bit. They get more sponge-like. For somebody that's eating clean, taking medications, or even taking supplements and so forth, the body's ability to absorb nutrition is greatly enhanced when you combine, when you use this infrared technology. It's truly amazing.
Definitely. And that's why I've even said to individuals, if you're on medications or even supplements, sometimes you'll know when you're taking too much supplements, you won't like the smell of it or whatever that supplement may be. So you just cut back or you don't take it for, an extended period of time. But even the medications, because it's opening up the cellular structures and that and allowing the flow and the circulation, that sometimes you need less medication than what is done, and you need to discuss that with your physician.
Of course, and right. I mean, you have an internal sense, but you always check in with your physician. I wanted to spend a minute and just talk to you a little bit about the science behind infrared frequency.
Sure.
Albert Einstein studied the effects of sun thermals on the Earth, and he came out with statements and that the most of the human, like carbon-based plants or animals, can get some benefit from this infrared frequency. NASA has employed infrared frequency in space shuttle technology, for instance. It's so safe because sometimes people get scared. They go, "Oh, it comes from the sun, so am I going to get melanomas, or am I going to get some kind of skin cancer, or something like that?" This frequency is used in neonatal care when they're jump-starting preemie babies in incubators. It's the same frequency they use for the body. So this is completely safe. From what we can see, there's virtually no contraindicators, and we can talk about that later on today. But it's really helpful technology, and it's been studied almost, I want to say, close to 100 years of science on this. So
right, it's had a long term, and it has great benefits. And in the process of developing, even with the lymphatic system, because our lymphatic system generates different T cells within our bodies that help kill off infections. Have you had any experience with that with individuals, how effective it was?
Well, one of the things that from one of the aspects, one of the features and benefits of infrared is it actually helps the body's natural immune system. It's an enhancement in that regard. And so let's paint the picture. Basically, this frequency comes into the body, it warms up the muscle, and then we've got that biothermal. So on the outside, tactily, when you touch it, like one of our healing pads, to your finger, it'll be about 104 degrees Fahrenheit or so, merely 6 to 8 degrees warmer than your body core temperature. But internally, we could be generating a temperature of 130 some odd degrees. And so in the process of warming the muscle and warming the tissues, warming up the organs, we're creating essentially a hypothermia, or a core, raising that core temperature. And, one of the body's mainline defenses against disease or invasion, bacteria, viruses, is a fever. And and I often say, and I call this technology will create what we call a false fever, because we're raising that core temperature, so we're helping the body naturally fight off disease. Above 102 degrees Fahrenheit, most bacteria and viruses cannot thrive. And it's that same, it seems like that same threshold, that 102, that kicks the lymphatic system into overdrive. I think I've heard from one of our advisors here that the lymphatic system is somewhere between 600 or 800 times more active above 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So here we are, we use the infrared, we raise our core temperature as we approach that 102. If you're fighting off a cold or a virus or something, it starts to, they can't populate. They don't like heat, or including, and that's one of the things that we've used very effectively with my daughter. This hypothermia, this raising of her core temperature, really has kept her Lyme disease at bay, because, the spirochete, parasites, bacteria, viruses, they don't like a lot of oxygen. They don't like high heat or elevated heat temperatures. They love sugar diets. My God, if you could figure out a way to cut the sugar out of your diet, it would kill a lot of these invaders, these little buggers. But on the immune system, when we raise that core temperature, we're naturally fighting off the disease and helping the body. Now imagine if we could use this technology, the sauna, healing pad, whatever, to help the body, so that the body doesn't have to use its life source, its energies, to bring that fever up. It's being done through this technology. Then, if you're about to get a cold, you may never get it. If you have one, it may not last as long. I mean,
Correct.
Imagine what that does to your quality of life. Just that little factor itself is really incredible.
Right, and it extends your longevity that way, too, because you're not always overstimulating your body in these other mechanisms. Now, with this, because you stated earlier in reference to pain, we'll leave it at that. Please hang with us, Robby. And audience, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll go into our second hour, and we'll start with pain.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Dr. Hildy Show on the OneCellOneLight Radio Network. For the other half of today's show, or to view all of our shows archived for your immediate-free download, please visit OneCellOneLightRadio.wordpress.com. This is Mark the Arcturian speaking for the Dr. Hildy Show, a OneCellOneLight Radio production.